Okay, so we have 3 assignments due today. Residential blueprint reading. If you had that in, I graded most of these already. Interpret garage plans and specs. That's due today. And then the garage QCR where you're marking up on the 11x17s. So we had 3 assignments. They were all due today. We're gonna have 3 more assignments this week, and they're all gonna be due a week from today. But I've got it, unlike last week, which I had a study class for the last one, we're gonna have class all 3 times this week. Because I'm gonna go through a different assignment each week. So let's talk about what we're gonna do this week. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna look at commercial plans and commercial blueprint reading, and there's an assignment, a 15-question assignment on that. I hope that you have enough time to get that done in class today, or at least get a good start on it. Then tomorrow, we are going to do a little bit about specifications, and you can get a little bit of a taste about what it's like to edit commercial spec. And then on the class 3, which is on Wednesday, we're going to learn about keynoting drawings, and we're going to have an assignment. I'm probably going to have you work with a partner on that one. I'll let you work with somebody in class on that one if you show up on Wednesday. Okay, so just so you know, I did a very detailed blueprint reading lecture on 3-part series, and it ends up to be 37 minutes. It's on my YouTube channel here. I don't like showing 37 minutes of videos in class. I'm just going to do a shorter version because you should have learned this in your blueprint reading class the first term. I'm going to do a shorter version just to remind you some things now. But if you want to watch the full version that I did during COVID, you can watch those 3 videos. So I'm going to ask you to follow along with me. So when you go back into why don't you all come into Blackboard? We're going to use the blueprints for this building, that big, huge set that I threw on the table the first day. We got a PDF of that posted up to Blackboard. We're going to use that on this first assignment, this commercial blueprint reading. So this drawing right here, if you just click on it, at least mine, it opens it up inside the browser, the way I have mine set up. You're probably not going to want to, so like when I zoom in, I want to use my mouse wheel to zoom in versus always having to come over here. So just me personally, for me going through this set of plans, I'm going to right click on this, save this onto my computer somewhere. And then what I would do is I'm going to open it up in a professional level PDF software. It's called Bluebeam. So I'm going to find that wherever I downloaded it from Blackboard. And I'm going to go to Open with Bluebeam Review. So this is a more professional level dealing with PDFs. You can measure on here. You can mark up on here. Tim's going to have you use this for building estimating in the summer. Now, the only problem we've got with our Bluebeam is our version in the classroom is 2017, so it's 8 years old. And Tim's been trying to get him to install the new version since Thanksgiving. So we're still on the old version, but it'll work fine for this assignment. So the first thing I want you to do is once you get the volume 1 opened up there, you can either see little thumbnails of all the sheets like that, or you can see little bookmarks. Now, I'm probably going to recommend you do bookmarks because when we're looking at these various things that are keyed in, it'll say it's on sheet A104 or sheet A105. So get the little bookmarks thing up. Now, this thing might be bigger. It might look like that. So let's get ourselves some more real estate, and we'll click this arrow there to get it to the smaller size. So when you get in an office, I can almost guarantee you're going to be using Bluebeam. So Tim and I decided that we were going to start teaching more Bluebeam, and that's why Tim's going to have you using it during building estimating. So let's go to sheet A100 here, and I'm recording this. If you can't follow along with me, you'll just have to watch the recording. Okay. So like I mentioned before, this, like the one I dumpster dived, was in 2 sets. This is in 2 sets. This is the interior build out package, volume 1 and volume 2. And this is all laid out the way I told you before, as far as the national CAD standards, where our 1 sheets, A's are architectural, our 1 sheets are floor plans, our 2 sheets are elevations, our 3 sheets are sections, etc., etc. So I'm not going to go through all that, but this is just like the index of the book. This is the index of the sheets. So the ones we're looking at here are the architectural, interior, and structural. This is the general sheet, the cover sheet. And these are all the people that worked on it. Now, this was all done in AutoCAD, and this is this building here. Now, the one thing I'm worried about showing you this set of plans is you might be like, this is so complicated. There is so much stuff on here. No human mind can comprehend everything that's on this building. And you're right. No one human mind can comprehend it. So if you look down here in the lower right, if I zoom in, these are all the teams that worked on it. And these are the contact people. So like, for example, when I was in the real world, I did projects with Galileo and Pat. I did interior design projects with Lou. But then in Pat's office, Pat had multiple people working on these drawings. I'm sure in Lou's office, she had multiple people working on these drawings. So you're not going to, as a beginning designer, have to work on all these drawings, everything. They might just give you a little bitty part of it. They might say, draw the interior elevations of all the lockers, right? Because somebody has to draw an interior elevation showing where the lockers are. And so they'll give you like a simple little task and have you work on it. Okay, so I'm going to quickly, there's not a lot of civil engineering on this one. This is just in the courtyard where they've got this reclaimed water system. I'm assuming that that was done in the earlier package, all the parking lots and everything. So there's not as many civil plans as there normally would be. This one here is just a code plan. And what this is just showing you is where the fire rated walls are and the exit doors are. So like you can see the exit paths on the first floor, and you can see like where the stairwells are and the elevators are. So it's just basically a code plan. So when they're giving you your building permit, this is where all your code data is. Now, first thing is, I started out, as you know, seeing my PowerPoint. I was a residential designer, and then I also did some commercial interiors because I wasn't working for a registered architect at that time. We were basically specialist custom home designers, but we would also do like interior design stuff like restaurants and stuff. But then I made the switch over into commercial once I got to be a registered architect. And commercial blew my mind even after having been in the field for so many years. And the reason is that on residential, you don't have to do all these drawings in great detail because it's typically not competitively bid. And it's also like when you're putting the lighting and the HVAC and the electrical in, a lot of it's done design build where you literally like sit down with the people and say, where are you going to put your furnace? They're like, oh, we'll put it down here in the basement. Where are you going to run your duct? Oh, we'll run it along the beam. And then they figure it all out. You don't have to do drawings on it, right? Because the only reason you have to do drawings is that if you're competitively bidding and it's something where like all these various things have to work together and it all has to be figured out, like in a house, they don't try to figure out where the ducts and the plumbing are running in advance. The people that are installing it figure it out on site. And like, as far as like where the outlets go on the walls, they might just walk around with the owner and, you know, they'll say, okay, we're going to put in an outlet every 12 feet, but exactly where? They'll walk around with the owner and the owner will be like, oh, I want my outlet there. And then I want another one there on the other side of my bed. You know, so they'll just kind of mark it on the studs where the walls are. So houses are a lot more easier to design because we're not competitively bidding them and they're not as complicated. We don't have to do all these drawings. Okay, so now let's show you a couple other things on commercial buildings. So this building was so big, you typically don't show plans smaller than an 1/8" scale. So this is at an 1/8" scale, and you saw how big the sheets were. They didn't want to make the sheets bigger, but they didn't want to make the scale smaller because you can't actually see anything. It's too small. So what they did is they broke the building into little chunks down on the first floor, because the first floor, as you see, if you look out the window, it's bigger than the third floor. So this is just the right half side of the first floor. And then this is the left half side of the first floor. So let's show you that. Okay, so I decided for my quick and dirty version of this lecture, I'm going to go up to the third floor because that's the one we're familiar with. So I'm just going to skip over to A104 here, which is our third floor. So if you want to follow along with me, the first thing we need to do is look at the right. There's all kinds of interesting information on the right. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom into the right, this whole bar, it's got a bunch of different things. And it's kind of like looking at a street map where you need to know what signs, and like a stop sign is a red octagon. You need to know like the key to what signs are what on these drawings here. So let's zoom into the upper right corner here. So what these say is floor plan general notes. So if I see a little lollipop symbol with a circle and a line, this is for a wall type. So that's going to show me a detail of how that wall is constructed, and it's on sheet A600. If I see a little six-sided symbol with a number in it, that's a window type. So I need to go to that sheet and that sheet to find those windows. So field dimensions, field verify dimensions prior to fabrication of new work. These are just general notes. Verify size and location of all mechanical wall openings, general contractor. So we're not keying that in. That's just a general note for this plan. So that's a general note. Now, then they've got a wall legend where they did the walls differently. So an existing wall is grayed out, and a masonry wall has a diagonal dash. So let's look at this. On the third floor, do we have any existing walls? We have grayed out walls with dashes on it, but that says that that was part of the shell package. So this isn't even all the drawings. They did the shell on a different set of drawings. And then the gypsum board doesn't have anything in there. So when I see this grayed out line here, that was part of the shell package. Okay, so now let's keep looking down. They've got a little key of all their abbreviations. So if I see FFE, that's finished floor elevation. If I see FX1, that's a fire extinguisher, semi-recessed, and a cabinet. And then they have keynotes. So when I went through the residential, I talked about keynotes. So anything that looks like a little triangle with a number in it, I have to come over here to the right to see what it is. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about how this is all laid out. It's just like a residential plan, like the house you did. It's got a drawing title and it's got a sheet number. So this would be drawing A. Let's see what they call this drawing. This is drawing 1 on sheet A104. It's got a north arrow. Anytime you have a floor plan, you put a north arrow on it. Then these bad boys here, these like little circles with a line on them, this is what's called a structural grid. So on the top, they're numbered 1 through 7. And on the right, they're lettered A through B or whatever, A, B, C, D. So I can go in and I can say, let's look at column A6. And the people on the job site can go, oh, okay, that's Pete's talking about this specific column right there. So if you go down to our room here where we're sitting in, we're in the ARC studio here, that column right there that I'm pointing at is on a structural grid. So that's how you locate the columns from that structural grid. And you can see there's another column in that corner where it's boxed out. And there's another column on Lucas's right hand there. You can kind of see it if you look above the drywall box. There's a steel column in that wall. You can also see that this wall is changing from a masonry wall to the right of that column to a drywall wall to the left of that column. So when they make us hide for the active shooter drills, we're hiding in this room. And I feel pretty safe in there because I literally have concrete block between me and the hallway there, right? And if they get into this room, I've got concrete block between that room and there. So the other thing you need to look at is some of the other symbols you need to look at. Just like on your house, you had room numbers and then the door numbers were numbered the same. It's the same way on commercial plans. You have a room number and then a door number that's numbered the same as the room. If you have multiple doors, then you go door A, door B, door C. Okay, so let's get up to the top here. This is a building section. So this is a section 1 on sheet A301, a building section. All these are wall sections. So this is wall section 1 of A302. So we already know that little octagon, that's a window symbol. So that's window 3 that's going in there. Then this is just like we did. Remember when we did the bathroom, I had that key that blew it up to a larger scale on a different sheet. That's what this is. This is a detailed plan. So this is drawing 3 on sheet A401. So when I ask you questions about these plans, you should first look at the floor plan and then try to figure out, like, is there a section through there that I need to look at? Or is there something on this plan that's going to show me? So if I asked you what the wall type was in storage room T308A, I would look at the floor plan first and then find out, hey, there's a bunch of exterior wall sections there. I can probably find it off of that. Or I could find it off of this partition type if I asked you what that wall type was. Okay, so you can see they're doing the dimensions. And we'll talk about this when we get to dimensioning, but they're running their dimension strings through the building, lining up just like the way they're supposed to. Let's see what we've got going on in this room and see if we can find any changes. So they've got a door there with a side light. They've got the column bumped out. They got that goofy HVAC thing, and then they've got the sliding door. That all looks pretty much the same. The reason there's that little bump out in the corner is there's a structural column there that they had to go around. Now let's go through this wall here. There's that little window there. Then we've got this window wall that runs all the way along, and you can see that there's this window that goes back where the wall intersects the window. That's exactly how it was designed. It wasn't a mistake. They designed it that way. Now, the one thing that's missing is they forgot this goofy HVAC thing behind the teacher station here. So now let's look at some of these keynotes. So this is wall type Y. That's the little lollipop, remember, is a wall type symbol. Let's see what keynote 42 says. So we're going to go back over here and we're going to find keynote 42. It's in the middle of the plan. Contractor to provide 2 rows of 24-inch, 22-gauge sheet metal for blocking at stud walls of this room below gypsum board height at top of 5'6" above finished floor and top of 8'6". Okay. So there's somehow blocking inside this room, and it's probably for installing like all that stuff that's hanging on the wall. They put special blocking in the wall. Let's see what all these notes are. I've got 25s and 11 on this outside wall. So let's see what 25 and 11 are telling me. So let's look at 11 first, and then we'll go down to 25. Composite window stool, adhesive applied, seal perimeter. So what they're telling me is this little brown piece here, this is a composite window stool. It's held on by sealant, and you can see as you look around it, all around the perimeter of this thing, they have sealant so that there's not a gap between either the window and the drywall. So that's what that keynote is. Let's see what keynote 11 is, or 25 is. Pull down perforated shade. And sure enough, all along on all these windows, we have pull down perforated shades. So let's see what else we've got going on in our classroom here. Do we have any other keynotes we can look up? 25s and 11, yeah. So it's basically telling them all that is going on there. Now then there's an elevation on sheet A620 of that little window. And then if we go into our storage room, same things going on there. They've got keynotes on the blocking. They've got keynotes on the composite window stool. Okay, so that's basically so your first stop on this little journey when you have a question about a room is find the floor plan of the room and then see if there's a section cut through it that's going to, like, for example, in our room here, I've got 2 sections, A307, 3 and 4. So if I want to see a cut through the window, let's go to A3A on A307. So I'm going to scroll down here to A307. And now I'm going to find drawing 3A. That's right here. So on the 3rd floor, so this is the 4th floor. You can see over on the left, there's the 4th floor. Here's the 3rd floor. So this is the section showing that wall into our room. And it's actually showing exactly what we got going on, where our acoustical ceiling panel stops before it hits the outside wall. And then the structure is exposed around the perimeter, which is what we got. And then there's that beam that runs along the outside wall here. And so you can see our structural grid is inboard, and then these studs, don't actually hold up the building. They're just clipped onto the outside. And you can see there's a detail that shows me how the window head is and the window sill is. So if I asked you about the window sill on this building, I first go to the floor plan, find the section, and then I would say, oh, I need to look at sheet 9 of A500. So let's quickly go look at that. So I click on A500, and then I'm going to find drawing 9, and that's going to be the window sill on our room here. So right up there, I can see 9 starting to fill in here. So that's a cut through the windowsill showing exactly how that window is put together, exactly how this wall is put together. And again, it's got all these goofy keynotes. So we already know 11 is that composite window stool. They use the same keynote there. What do you think 34 is? Any guesses? It's inside the stud wall, on the outside face of the stud wall.
Would be insulation.
It is an insulation of some sort, because this is brick, airspace, rigid insulation, but then they did spray foam because like all the fasteners that are coming through that wall, they're gonna be thermal bridges. So they did spray foam. So let's look at 34 here and see if we're right, if that's spray foam. Spray foam insulation and stub cavity, seawall types for thickness, right? So that just shows you an example of how I first found it in the floor plan, then I found the section, then I found the detail, and I could find the answer on that, the fine detail onto that detail. So now let's skip all these other floor plan sheets. So there's other floor plans. Let's just not skip all of them. I'm going to show you the third floor reflected ceiling plan. Let's go to A113. So this is the reflected ceiling plan for this room. Let's go take a peek at that. So we got exposed structure around the perimeter. Let's look at our ceiling. Does our ceiling match what's on the plans here? No. Because they show their lights right at the corner, right? These are lights. So they show the lights right at the corner, okay? So they did not install it that way. What they did is they bought the lights in, so there's always a solid tile all the way around. Okay, so all these lights got moved, and instead of having 3 spaces between the lights, we got 2 now because they moved them all inboard one row thing. And then the other thing is back on the back wall there, they show 2 HVAC coming in, and those are actually in a different location as well. So they kind of really redid this. Now, they show, see this little parentheses there? That shows the ceiling height of that ceiling. So they're showing this at 10 feet. Well, let's see what this is. So just a pro tip for field measuring. Did they teach you field measuring in that first year class? No. They did? Tim Scott, well, you must have missed that one, because I got to look people down in there. Okay, so we do not measure. Did they tell you this part? Great. How am I supposed to see that down there? You don't measure verticals like that. You measure verticals like this. You put it down. And you can read it that way then. See, so it's exactly 10 feet. So that's how they knew to install that ceiling at 10 feet high, because it's on the reflected ceiling plan.
It's also easier to use the tape, I feel like that.
Like what? Like I just showed
Right,
you.
you just showed us.
Yeah.
It's not easy to like just keep it like floppy, like.
Yeah, no, it
easier
is,
to
yeah,
see,
it's
you know.
easier to bend it back, right? So there's a little bit of a skill involved in handling a tape measure. Okay, so let's see what you can see what they did. They had an equal, so dimension A equals dimension A, so they wanted an equal space at the front and they wanted an equal space at the side. Okay, so there's reflected ceiling plans and plans. Let's see what these A300s are. Oh, so these are equipment plans. So there's a ton of equipment in the shop, so they needed to key in where the various equipment was. So that's what all those are. So now remember, 200s are the starts of the elevations. Okay, so this is the elevation you see when you're out in the parking lot to the south of the buildings. This is called the south elevation. So it's the side of the building that faces south. So just like when we did our house on Revit, we have our levels. This was all done in AutoCAD, but we still used levels to show where the floors are. And then our structural grid is still shown here. And now we're still showing every time there's a section through this building, we have a little section symbol there. So all these little L's are the way that the section is pointing. So all these sections are looking to the left. And you can tell, like if I wanted to see the section through our building, we're like, I think this is our classroom. So I think this is a section through our classroom here, but I don't know for sure. So the best way to find out where the sections are is really from the floor plan. But
Yeah,
we're up here. Yeah, you're right. Right. Good catch, Cormac. We're up on the third floor here. So I'm assuming that this section two of A303 is the ones that I went through the wall there. It's got keynotes just like before. And now let's look at the window. So if you look at our back window, it's solid, light, solid, light, solid, light, solid. So solid, light, solid, light, solid, light, solid. So that they're showing all that. And then it's got the frosted windows above. So they're hatching in a different pattern to show which ones are solid panels, which ones we can see through, and which ones are the frosted glass. So you can see right above us is where that goofy air intake that warms up the air into the mechanical room is. Okay, so there's our elevations, and we've got more elevation sheets, and then we've got interior elevations. So this is the third floor presentation space, east elevation. So what are we looking at there? Oops, let me zoom in. We're looking at our living wall system. So somebody drew this interior elevation at an 1/8" scale. It's showing the wall covering, the different colors of paint. It's showing the chair rail, it's showing the windows, and it's showing where the living wall is. And right here, they're showing me that there's a detail cut through that living wall system on drawing 5 of sheet A309. So anything that starts with the 2 is an elevation. So let's go look at another one just randomly here. I'll look at 235. Let me click over to here. Why is it? So let's see what 235 looks like. Oh, this is all the science casework. So it breaks a little bit with our numbering thing because they just got all these drawings from a different place and they just put them in their sheet. Now let's look at some of these sections. So let's go to sheet A300. And that's that big section all the way through the building from one side to the other. Then you'll notice, like if you zoom in here, oh, I want to know the section here where it's above the welding shop or whatever. I would go to look at drawing 5 of sheet A306. And what does Sim stand for? Does it mean that it's the computer game The Sims? What does Sim stand for? Similar. Okay, so they're saying that it's not exactly cut at that spot, but it's similar to a section that's cut at that spot. So whenever you see these bubbles, that gives you like a key when you're trying to find something. Oh, I want to know what's going on in that wall. I can get it off of the section too. Okay, so now let's look at A303. That's the one where we looked at the wall section through our building, so I won't go through that. But again, it's blowing out the details that come off of that. And you can see, remember when I kept telling you that we're standing on the roof of the existing building? The roof of that existing building, they hatched it differently. So we're on a precast concrete floor. And that was the existing building's roof. So that's what we're standing on right now. But above us, we have a new roof, which is on a metal deck with steel beams. And that's why you've got that goofy channel that runs between your desks, because they couldn't like drill all the holes we wanted to drill to give us total freedom of where these power outlets were. They only could drill a couple holes in there. because they didn't want to drill holes in that existing precast because they were scared they were going to hit too much of the reinforcing. So that's why we had to run that channel. Remember the Cormac, the channel we found when you kicked it off this morning? That's channels down there because there's only two power things that literally feed all your desk. And there's all kinds of cables running from those power things to feed it. And that's why that channel is between you guys. Okay, so now let's keep rolling here. Let's look at A400. So 4 is telling me that we should be switching kinds of sheets. So all the 3s are sections. The 4s are large scale plans. So you can see they drew their third floor toilet room plan at 1/4 inch scale. There's just no way to get all these dimensions and all these notes in at an 1/8 inch scale plan. So obviously this is the restroom we use up on this 3rd floor. It shows the various accessories that are going there. So TP, my guess it stands for toilet paper holder. No, it doesn't. It stands for toilet partition, floor mounted overhead braced. What's TPH? Oh, that's toilet paper holder, double toilet paper holder, center 9 inches front of stool, lip with shelf, stud mounting height center at 2 feet above finished floor. So there's a ton of information on these plans. So that's why they had to draw it at a bigger scale and blow it out. And you can still see we've got our column grids showing into here. That's still shown on these larger scale plans. Now let's see what the 500 sheets are. For whatever reason, I double click these and that messes them up. So let's look at A501. So now we're on the 500s, which are details. So that's the one where I looked at how we cut through the wall. So this is really, if you want to get into fine detail of how this building is put together. Now, if your brain's starting to hurt at this point, just trust me, my brain hurts too. To try to get your head around what's involved in a big commercial building, it's just too much for one person's head in one lecture. But again, if you know these rules on how to find things, it's not that bad. Okay, let's see what the 600 sheets are. So let me click on that. So remember I told you about the wall type details that are keyed back here? So I can tell if I saw one of those little lollipops that was a Q, I could tell that that is a 10-inch CMU wall. If it's a P, I can tell it's a 8-inch CMU wall. But if it's a P1, it's actually has to be fire rated. And if it's P2, it has to be a different fire rated. And the reason I need to have those all things is because like if I do a hole in a wall that doesn't have to be fire rated, I don't have to put any clock or anything around. I don't care if the fire goes through it because it's not fire rated. But if it's a 2-hour rated fire rating and I put a hole in that wall for a pipe to run through, I now have to put a 2-hour rated sealant in there that will not let a fire go through for 2 hours. Okay, so let's keep rolling. So the 600s are related to walls. Now the IDs are interior design sheets. So let's just try to find our interior design sheet for our floor here and see if they did our floor pattern the way they said they did. So somebody didn't just, I know this sounds hard to believe, but they didn't just leave it up to the contractors like, oh, we got some orange stripes in here, they're gonna go wherever. We've got these things that look like fungus, right, with the little dots on it. And then we've got other ones that don't look like fungus, but they don't have the little dots on it. So somebody went through and figured out all the different kinds of carpet tile on here and did the pattern. So obviously these are the orange ones. And if you look at this thing in plan, somebody actually did a design, an interior designer did a design on how they laid out all these various carpet tiles in all these rooms. So none of this just happens, right? So this is why I believe there's a creator God, because if a building takes these many drawings to do, what's the odds of like Paige Sporonic just naturally happening? I got to cut that out of the video, right? So, but anyway, the odds of that just naturally happening by accident off of nothing is about 0. Okay, so let's keep rolling here. So those are all interior design. Now we're going to go into structural. So now we're into consulting engineers. So let's just kind of give you a taste of what's in structural. So there's a lot of standard details that they put on the structural plans that A lot of times this sheet will already be done for you and they just put it on every sheet, whether it's used or not. Okay, and I used to always be mad because I'm like, why can't you just edit this so I don't have to look at 30 details and you only have one of them that we're using on this project? But they're like, that's the way we do it. We show them all our details and they have to figure out which ones apply to their project. So they're making their life easier by just having these standard details and using them over and over and over again. So this is focusing then on just the structural aspects of the building. So let's see if we can find, oh, here's a good one, S107. That's that little bridge, the framing plan of that. So it shows how the roof framing goes, how there's diagonals up in that roof, and it also shows an elevation, how those trusses are on each side. So let's look at how the 300 sheets work. So they're doing a wall section again in their 300s, but they're just totally focusing on the structural aspects of that wall section. So let's just look in here. So they're showing steel beam, see plan, metal stud framing, because like there's a metal stud framing that goes in that holds up that roof. And as required, that might be needed to stabilize that wall. So there needs to be a metal header that holds up that stud above the window opening. It's not holding up the building, but it's just holding up that stud. So they're saying that that's by the stud supplier. And then they're showing the anchor bolt where they bolted this wall in back to the roof of the existing precast concrete plank. And then they're showing them that when they drilled a hole through there to anchor bolt this wall onto it, they want to grout that hole in the precast plank full of grout to kind of stabilize that as they drill through that. So you can see this is just mind-bogglingly complicated, lots of stuff. Okay, now luckily I'm only going to ask you questions on the architectural sheet on volume 1. So when did we start? 1:15. So I've already talked longer than my stupid videos. So yeah, good luck with that. So I'm gonna quickly go through and just show you the volume 2 just to get your head around it. So I'm gonna open up volume 2. So I'm gonna go right click on it. I'm gonna open with Bluebeam Review. No. No. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through because I've already been talking 37 minutes, which is what all my 3 videos are. Okay, so this is plumbing, HVAC, fire protection, and electrical. Now, you might actually get a job doing electrical drafting or plumbing drafting. Yes, yes. So we have people from this program that they go to work at ISG, and ISG likes training you, and they have all this stuff in-house. And they like training you for multiple disciplines so that if you're really busy doing a big HVAC project, you can have multiple people working on it. So I know people that started out there doing electrical, then they moved them to structural, and now they're in architectural. Okay, so you might, no, I don't teach you any of this, but Tim teaches you the MEP drafting enough to get a job in it in the summer session, okay, on the commercial. So let's just quickly look at what's involved here. I don't want to spend too much time. So this is just focused on the plumbing requirements of, so let's zoom in here. So you can see here, there's a floor, there's the various plumbing piping, cold water, hot water, you know, that little wall that we look at. Oh, this is on the second floor, but anyway, this is showing where all the plumbing piping is running. Okay, so let's look at our floor here. So all those plumbing pipes are coming up a chase. The ones on the wall where this is where the plexiglass wall is, all that's shown on these plans. Okay, now let's look at the mechanical plans. So this is showing the piping for the HVAC. So let's get up to our floor here and see if we can find out what's going on. So I'm going to go to M304. So what they're telling us is when I walk in the door here, there's a VAV box there, and it's got two lines to it. It's got hot water return and hot water supply, or groundwater supply or whatever. And then they're going out through this wall. So if you come over here, right above where I'm pointing, it says glycol hot water supply, glycol hot water return, those two pipes. Those are those two pipes here. So the G stands for glycol. So the hot water supply and return pipes, we know exactly where they are because they're built on the plan there. So let's go back and look at the back. There should be some more of those pipes going up right above that sliding door. Let's go back there and see if there are some. Are there two pipes running through that wall? Or-
Yep.
There's three? Four. Okay, so the two that we're talking about on this sheet are the glycol hot water return and the glycol hot water supply. So those are going through above there, and then there's a duct coming up here. And so all this stuff, it's all been planned. Now, on Revit, it's all modeled in 3D, so we know those pipes aren't gonna hit a steel beam or something. In AutoCAD, somebody's gotta visualize it in their heads, that it's all gonna work out. That's why everybody's using Revit now for commercial, because it was a freaking nightmare on AutoCAD, because all this stuff ended up hitting it in 3D, because nobody's mind could comprehend how these things were gonna work together, right? So we always had big arguments where, move your blankety blank pipe, I gotta put a steel beam there. No, you move your steel beam, my pipe was there first. So that Revit avoids all that, right? Okay, so there's our mechanical piping. Let's just quickly look at the electricals, and then I'm gonna let you work on this assignment. So we have lighting plan. So that's 4th floor lighting plan. Let's look at the 3rd floor lighting plan. So this is showing where the switches are for the lights, and which lights are running by which switches, and where the daylight sensors are and where the occupancy sensors are. So 16, my guess is let's see what keynote 16 is. Provide a watt stopper daylight sensor to control light fixtures in daylight area. So let's see if we can find that watt stopper. It should be very close to that column towards the back of the room. Yeah. That's a daylight sensor, that little thing sticking out from the ceiling. So that's actually what's dimming the lights in this room. And then we've got two occupancy sensors in the middle. So where are those? Oh, that's these bad boys here. Okay, so those are occupancy sensors. So those are the ones that are turning the lights on and off. You know, like if nobody's in the room, they turn them off. When you walk in the room, they turn them on. So all that stuff has been shown on the plans. And it also shows where the switches are and which switches are controlling each bank of lights. So you can see there's 3 switches by the door there. Okay, I've talked enough. Fire alarm plans or sprinkler system plans. We're not going to get into it in great detail, but your assignment is, thank you for bearing with me, even though I talked for 45 minutes to save you from watching 37 minutes of video. So let's talk about your assignment. Commercial blueprint reading, you're going to use those 2 sets of plans. You're only going to use volume 1 though for this assignment. So let's show you that. Let me open that up. So there's 15 questions, they're all worth a point. So don't take this not seriously, because each of these questions is literally 1 point. So what sheet number shows the 1/4 inch to 1 foot stair plans? Now, when I say sheet number, what am I asking you for? The one in the lower right corner, right? The one that says A100 or A201. Okay, so let me just quickly go back to my, did I get out of Bluebeam? I guess I didn't. But sheet number is different than drawing number. So sheet number, I'm just asking for the sheet. Some of these, what does keynote 11 on the south elevation call out? You got to know how to find the the keynote number. what is the sheet number and the drawing number of the interior elevation that shows the third floor living wall? Well, believe it or not, just by dumb luck, I showed it to you just in my little lecture. Remember, I showed you that elevation of the living wall on the third floor? But you're gonna say, that's drawing number 6 on sheet A305 or whatever it is. That's the answer to that question. So I'm just trying to find out that you know how to find things on the plan. I'm not asking you to totally comprehend this massive set of drawings, but I'm just trying to find out if you can find your way around what's the sheet number and the drawing number of the architectural floor plan drawing that shows my office T207A. So it's probably gonna be on the second floor, right? Because our room numbers are by floor. 2 is for the second floor. So you look at that floor plan and find out what the sheet number and the drawing number is for the architectural one. So you should probably be able to get this done, even though I talked for 45 minutes. I'll be here if you have any questions. But don't just really blast through this because each of these is a point. So take this seriously. Okay, thank you.